So with the new fusion champion, I thought I should look and see if we can bring her into Clan Boss. And the more I play with her, the more I realize she's going to be a beast for Clan Boss in a variety of teams because her kit has so many possibilities to bring to the table. So I'm really excited to try this out. So let's jump in. Welcome on the Deadwoodjedi. This is going to be another Raid Shadow Legends video. We are on the test server looking at Zinogre Blademaster. She is an incredible champion, but we're going to be taking her into Clan Boss today. That's the goal. I kind of want to point out a reason why I thought she would be so good for Clan Boss. And actually, it's rather unique. She is going to be good for a variety of teams. I didn't even realize this when I first looked at her, but her kit is pretty broken for Clan Boss. First off, they're all multi-hits, right? So triple hit on the A1, 4-hitter on the A2, 4-hitter on the A3. All of those are pretty outstanding because it allows you to use Giant Slayer. And those of you that are familiar, Giant Slayer does as much damage as War Master. When you have a champion with this many multi-hits, that means you're just getting more opportunities to land it, and you're going to land it a lot more often, which means a lot more damage. It can be a huge difference maker for your teams. On top of that, she brings a lot of great debuffs to the table. You're getting decreased attack, leech. Those are massive for sustainability. And then, of course, you have weaken on the A1 for some extra damage, not to mention the increased speed buff on that A2. What does this really mean for her? It means that we can bring her into a wide range of teams. We can use her in a traditional team, right? Without the increased speed, just bringing her in for leech, decreased attack, and weaken. Those are three amazing debuffs for Clan Boss all by themselves. Or we could try using her in a 2-1 ratio team. Now, she does give herself a 20% turn meter boost with that A2. We have to keep that in mind. This is going to increase her own turn meter. So until we get her in the calculator, it's going to be a little tricky trying to bring her into a 2-1 ratio team. But the fact is that we can bring another increased speed champion, bring a buff extender with her. But the possibility, the reality is this is something that we will be able to make happen. So that's pretty remarkable right there. And then on top of all of that, she's got a passive that I find really unique, and that's what we're going to try and exploit today. The passive that increases her damage when she has 50% HP when she has less than 100% HP. Every percent up to 50% less, and it's going to increase her damage by that percentage amount. So she should be able to do some pretty good damage, and that doubles when under decreased defense. This means we should be able to actually double her damage, right? Just by having decreased defense up for the full fight and letting her be under 50% HP. This means that she should be good in teams like any man-eater team, any team where you're losing HP pretty regularly. And then on top of that, I really wanted to try to fully exploit her, which means using her passive ability here that prevents her from dying, and use that in Clan Boss team. So we're going to be running a unique team today. It's not going to maximize her damage because we're going to try to utilize that A3, that passive ability, so that she can cheat death a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to bring her into a classic Helicath team. What I would like to call, what I have called, this is basically an old tune, but we've used Helicath for it. You can use Tower if you want to. But the idea is it's basically called a fast Tower Skull Crusher team or a fast Helicath team. And basically what it is we have our block damage champion Helicath here, or Tower would work, going at 241. Right, I have at 243. This is just tuned for Ultra Nightmare. The speeds are always a little tighter when you're trying to do Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare. But I'll put a link to this build that I used off the website in the description of this video. So you can click on that if you really want to, use this team yourself. But going at 241 speed, I should say, Helicath's going to take a double turn before the first AoE, blocking damage for both AoE attacks. That means all we have to do is worry about the stun. Now, typically with this, we have our stun target champion actually going slow like everybody else. And we use the shield that Helicath provides to let them survive. Well, in this case, we're going to use our Blademaster like we would use a Skull Crusher. and have her go fast. So she's going to go 247. She's going to be the fastest in this team, taking a double turn before the stun, outrunning the shield from Helicat, getting the block debuff and shield from Brogni, unfortunately. But hopefully this is going to allow that passive of hers to take the stun hit, not allow her to die, and reset over the next 3 turns that she takes. So every 4 turns, that passive will reset just in time to take the stun. This is the idea behind the team. Haven't run it fully, but it should work. And if it does successfully, we'll run at least 50 turns because Helicat's going to block damage for the AoEs, and Blademaster will take the stun, and potentially pass that because Helicat does provide a pretty solid shield for us. We do have, some pretty decent defense for the AoE, so we might not survive past that. Probably won't survive past that, but we might survive past that. And if we do, this should be a pretty fun little team to watch happen. So that's kind of the idea here. We got Draco, Martyr, Brogni, all providing some damage in addition to Blademaster. So we're going to be a very high damage team. It's not a very fast team, but I think it should work really well. So that's the idea here. Let's jump in. We can see how this run goes. And then I'll show you the gear and we'll jump to the end, and I'll talk at the very end of this video. I want to talk about some other teams that I think she's going to be actually really good for, and I kind of want to test out. These are teams that I might share just to give you guys a sense of what she can do in different clan boss teams. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments below. But let's jump in here really quick. So we started off, get that, Blademaster's just going to do her thing. Now, I don't have accuracy on her. One thing I don't want is leech. I actually really don't want that, which might be a problem with all her multi-hits. We don't want that because I don't want her to heal up. I want her to stay as low HP as possible. And that's kind of how, she does not have Life Drinker, but the lower her HP, the more damage she's going to be able to do. But that's not our focus, obviously. Now, this team, it does run auto for us. I just have to give it some time to really sink in. But what we should be able to see here is I have the turret on Martyr. So the stun should go to the Blademaster. And if it does, Zen will take that stun and, we'll pretty much be immune from dying due to that passive of hers that'll leave her with 1 HP. There goes the stun right where we said it would. And now we're just going to continue to roll on. We got decreased defense from Martyr's A1, turned off for A3, of course. And that's going to allow Blademaster to get double damage from all the HP that she ends up losing. So the more she loses, the sooner she loses it, the better. That's probably not actually going to kick in till about halfway through this fight, which, is unfortunate, but just kind of the way it goes, I would say. We should be fully in sync, I think, right after this turn, right after this stun here, and then we're going to be fully synced up. We can see the damage that she's putting out there. That's 200k there with, I believe that was her A2 or A3 ability, right? That's her A1, putting out almost 150,000 damage. I did have to turn off her A2. We don't need increased speed buff. We don't want that turn meter buff, but she slaps pretty hard for clan boss, which I wasn't sure what's going to happen. And with no blessings on her, with her not being, going at this really fast speed, I don't have her maxed out for damage at all, not even close. And she still has full health, which I think makes a pretty big difference as well. So this is not what I would call an optimum build for her, right? But it's still really effective, which I think is kind of shocking, to be honest with you. Now, there's obviously some ways I can go about doing this that maybe, could be a little bit better as far as, maximizing the damage that she can produce, right? I do have block buffs with the shield from Brogni going on right before the stun. Not ideal. I could try to have Brogni cleanse the stun instead. That's definitely a possibility. It's a little bit, maybe not my favorite choice to go about, just because I feel like we maybe don't maximize the full damage that Brogni can bring to the table, but maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe that's really not important. You can see we're doing plenty of damage as is, and I would love to see what she can do damage wise, really maximizing it, see how low she can get, but it doesn't really matter. This early on in the fight, we're not going to be able to take enough damage to get really low anyway we slice it. Now, one of the good things about having a block damage champion, I don't have to worry about healing. I also don't have to worry about her triggering her passives too soon. That's a thing that can happen. When you have someone that's passive triggers when they go really low on HP or should go to 0, if the boss is going to do enough damage to exceed their current HP, it will often trigger that ability too early. So I really do need to block the damage until the stun, because the stun's going to trail behind the AoEs as far as damage goes. But that's the thing that we really need to trigger her buff, and it being on a 4-turn cooldown, we kind of need to have that trigger happening at an exact particular time. So it's an interesting champ, right? Obviously, you know, she's not perfect, but you can still see she's still putting up that 150 to 200,000 damage every single turn along the way. Plus with the Giant Slayer, that's really, you know, probably another 50 to 60,000 damage every single time as well, just in additional Giant Slayer procs that we wouldn't normally get. That takes her to pretty high damage threshold, I would say, per attack. I mean, compared to Draco, who I think is doing about 300k in attack, that's a pretty comparable amount, right? Look at that, 260 from Draco. We're getting pretty close to that from her. I guess 350, whatever. Not too far off. Not as much, no Draco, but pretty good all the same. The advantage is, of course, he brings utility, very different utility than we get from Draco, or that, for that matter, from many of the other champions in this game. We're already doing 2 million damage per turn, which is remarkable. It's easily a 1-key team already, which I think is pretty fantastic if we can last 50 turns, and we should. So let me go ahead and show you guys the champs. We're already getting to the point where the stun is taking away the shield from Brogni. This is the point where we should finally start taking damage, and we should start seeing her damage numbers ramp up. Let's look at the champions first, and then we'll come back a little bit later in the fight where we can really see that damage ramp up, you know, more readily. Let's go ahead and break down the stats of the champions we're using today. We've got Martyr in here, 192, going slowest in the team, to allow the counter attack to stay up for the majority of the fight, for the majority of the champions, right? At least for the AoEs. Good accuracy at 240, good crit rate, crit damage, defense. All that's actually pretty super high. I'm pretty happy with this build for our champion here. We also have, obviously, the Blademaster herself, the Zinogre, or whatever her name is. Anyway, basically we've turned off her A2 skill. We've got her going at 247 speed. This is going to allow her to go on a 4-3 ratio. Now, for her skills, you know, everything's on a 3-turn cooldown. That's fine, but we're really trying to speed tune her passive ability, which is on that 4-turn cooldown. That's why all the speed we have here. Good 100% crit rate, good crit damage. I think the attack's okay at 550. At these speeds, it's hard for me to build it that much higher, which actually goes to show the potential of this champion to do damage. And we didn't put any accuracy in because we don't need the debuffs with this squad that we have going on here. We also have Draco, obviously, primarily there for poisons, also for damage, because Draco's a beast, of course. 6,400 attack with 196 speed, going first in this comp, at least for the DPS champions, right? Good crit rate, crit damage is okay, good accuracy to land those poison debuffs. We did turn off the A3 for him, so he's always attacking. We've also got Underpriest Brogni in here, good attack at 4,500. Good crit rate, crit damage is okay, accuracy is pretty high, so we can land some HP burn. His primary role is actually to place the block debuff on the Blademaster before the stun. One of the things I wanted to try to avoid was any extra healing, which was a challenge. I compromised and allowed Brogni to use his shield and the small healing we get from that, so that we can make sure that we don't get stunned. We need to make sure that we allow that cooldown to refresh so that we can stay alive for the whole fight. And then very last, we have Helicath, obviously 243 speed, good defense at 5,400. Crit damage is solid, very good, I would say, and the accuracy is solid enough to land that weakened debuff. Okay, we're back. I want to interrupt it really quickly. You'll see we are very low health because of the stun. Turn 39, we've already starting to get knocked down below that 50% threshold, which means our damage is being doubled. There's a decreased defense debuff. We're getting double the damage we were before. Remember, every hit previously was around 50k. Now it's going to be pretty close to 100,000. Now, here's the interesting thing. Because we're low health, we're getting that bonus. We do have the leech. I did land that. I've done that a few times. It's a little bit annoying. Definitely don't want to build accuracy if this is your goal. Kind of depends on the type of team you're trying to build. But watch what happens. As you see, as we gain more health, we lose that bonus, and you're going to see that in the hits here. Now, it's a triple hit on our A1, so just watch closely. I'll put it on 1-time speed. Boom, 96, 57, 51 as we healed up along the way. I find that pretty humorous myself, a little bit frustrating maybe, but definitely a little bit humorous. But I've seen us, when that leech isn't up there, when we don't land that, we're doing 400,000 hits. We're doing 100,000 per hit. When we have our 4-hitter, that is a massive amount of damage. Now, what I'm really interested in is this next stun, where it should take us down to 0 health. Does the passive kick in? It should, but I want to make sure that's what happens, and I'm real interested to see how that goes. I'm also really interested to see how that goes once we go past turn 50. Now, again, we land the leech. Did you guys catch that? I missed it when I first watched this video. I actually had to go back after completing the entire video because I didn't even realize it had happened. But yes, the passive activated. The stun was enough damage to kill this champion. She did go down to 0 HP, went down to 1 HP, I should say, and then back up to 50%, which is why I missed it. It was so seamless. It just passed me by. I didn't even notice it, but it factored in right there. It happened right there, and it kept this team going past turn 42. What's great about this passive is it's not an unkillable, it's not a block damage. It will survive past turn 50. This passive, that is, not necessarily the entire team. But let's finish out the run, see what kind of damage we can put up here. Frustrating, but it is what it is, not a problem. Okay, so we're getting closer to that point. The leech, of course, heals us up, and every time it does that, it makes us a little bit more resilient to the stun. I was really hoping that wouldn't be the case, but that is kind of the goal here. Let's speed through this and get to that part again. So I want to see, does that passive kick in? We'll stop it when we get to that point. Interesting. Yeah, we basically made it almost to 50 turns. Well, we did make it 50 turns, didn't we? I suppose we did make it 50 turns, which is great. That was a pretty good result here. What was interesting, and this is something I didn't even pick up, those last few stuns, we did indeed, that passive was in fact being activated. If I go back here, you can see on the video, you can see that passive being activated as we go down to 0, but part of that passive is bringing us back up to 50% HP, which is, you know, pretty nice. That's kind of the idea with that passive ability. We still get the full damage bonus. And so it was happening. I just wasn't even picking it up that was the actual deal. But it was happening every time that happened, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, 110 million damage, 111 million almost. Obviously a good result. We can look at the individual results. 21 million from Blademaster. That's not as good as Draco's 34, I grant you, but it's pretty good and definitely outpaced both Martyr and Brogni and Helicath, all of which are very good damage dealers in their own rights. Shows that Blademaster has some potential, and frankly, kind of didn't even come close to hitting the potential because Blademaster was very rarely under 100% health. Every time that did happen, we were able to skyrocket our damage numbers. So obviously, there's definitely some interesting ways to utilize her as a pure damage dealer in a team that you want. But I think that she has more uses than just that. I would love to see her. First off, I think she fits perfectly in a Myth Fu team, right? She brings a weaken, which is something that you need in addition to Fu Shan's decreased defense. So you could just use her there. You could even turn off both her A3 and A2. Just use her triple hit over and over, place the weaken, do some damage. You can do like I did and have the A3 in there as well. You'll land a decreased attack, you'll land a decreased attack and a leech, but I don't know that those two debuffs are that important versus the extra attacks that you get from her skill, that could be a really solid way to get some extra damage out of the Blademaster. So I might recommend that. In addition to that, you could use her in a double man-eater comp, right? Where you have multiple basically you have no healing in the team outside of maybe her leech if it lands, but every hit you're going to be going down to 0. You wouldn't have to utilize her passive ability that heals herself back up. That's probably not something you would want to do. But the rest of the time, you would definitely be, I mean, it doesn't matter if that happens or not. The managers are keeping you unkillable. But what is happening is you're going all the way through and attacking people all the time with that damage bonus. I think that's a pretty massive thing. Obviously, less accuracy is good. And this is actually, I think, a pretty good, a pretty nice thing for people that are early game. I actually highly recommend the earlier game you are, the more valuable she's going to be for clan boss, because you don't have to build her with accuracy. Then you don't have to worry about the leech landing. Then you actually get that damage bonus. If you have the budget unkillable, the budget man-eater unkillable team, she's going to be ideal, I think, for that team. Maybe even perfect for the stun target itself, right? So there's a lot of really good comps that I think you could utilize her for and have a lot of success with. She's a very good champion. I would actually be really interested to see her. Well, see, the problem is, of course, the passive ability doesn't really work with like an Emic unkillable type of team, right? I don't think she can work really well as the stun target because that passive will get triggered on AoEs. There's just really no way to avoid that, unfortunately. But otherwise, she's an outstanding champion. I think really good for clan boss. The fact that she has that increased speed buff as well means that she's going to be able to be used in other comps as well. Some really nice, traditional teams where you're just trying to survive, right? With like maybe a Taragi the Frog or something like that. I feel like there's a lot of potential here. The fact that she brings weaken means that she should be able to fit really nicely with somebody like a Deacon Armstrong as well. Again, probably have to turn off her A2, which is not the greatest thing in the world, but it's also not her strongest damage dealing ability. So there's a lot of potential with her. I definitely think she's going to be a good champion for pretty much everybody out there. If you don't have a speed champion in your team already, she's a great addition. I think she's going to be really good if you're struggling with clan boss. And obviously she's going to be very solid for Fire Knight as well. So this is a good champion. Definitely, I definitely am going to recommend that you guys fuse her if you have the opportunity to. She is worth the effort. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think of her. What did you think about this performance? Now, obviously, I was waiting to see how she dealt with the stun, and I missed it because she does it so instinctively. She was definitely dying right around turn 40 when we stopped it, but her passive triggered, not only preventing her from dying, but healing her up along the way, which fooled my eyes when I was watching, and I didn't put it together till after the run was done. But she obviously has a lot of potential as a damage dealing champion and can be, I think, really good in a variety of comps. So if you want to see more clan boss teams with her, please let me know. Hit that like button though, so other people can see this as well. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, so you can see more of these kinds of videos. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.